The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour.
ChatGPT did become the world's most downloaded non-gaming app.
Literally the job of everyone in government to address the media and the public.
What are your thoughts, audience? What are your thoughts on Zandy Silva as the deputy PLP leader?
A community that can't feed itself is a community that's doomed.
What you may not know, though, is that Bermuda, we have a connection with Epstein, too.
Things that people are doing right, the youth are doing right, that is not being advertised enough.
When you see your access to U.S. dollars disappear, that's when you have a problem.
You've got a town in the UK with a similar sized population. This place absolutely outshines it.
It's Thursday, the 19th day of March, 2026. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. I'm Jamal Hartman, and we'll have a news break from Teo Dill in a bit to bring you the latest. How's everyone feeling today? It is, as some call it, Friday Junior. Claire Warner says, good morning, Bermuda, and a happy Thursday and great morning to you as well, Claire Warner. Hopefully everyone's feeling good. We've almost made it to the end of the traditional work week. We've got James Burgess says, good morning to the Daily Hour team show. I am watching. We are happy to have you watching, James Burgess. Let us know how you're feeling. How's everyone feeling out there? Let us know. Greetings to you all. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome the leader of the opposition, Ben Smith, on. We'll be discussing the state of his party and how he plans to lead them toward the next election. The Daily Play is going to be a Name That Place today, all right? I'm loving this. I'm loving today's Daily Play. I know you all will not let me down because there can only be 7 answers. I'm lying. It can only be 4 answers, but I was trying to trick. There can only be 4 answers. No, seriously, there can be 7 answers of a possible 4. There can be 7 answers, but only maybe 1 or 2 or 3 make sense. All right. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, folks, we've got Headleen Stevenson Swan says, happy Thursday, TDH, and a happy Thursday to you. I think I'm supposed to call her Heads. Happy Thursday to you. All righty, folks. Well, let's just jump right into it. What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? And also, do you believe a hospitality career is still a viable option for Bermudians? Well, what am I on about this morning? This is your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure. So basically, about 170 people showed up to the hospitality careers fair at Hamilton Princess this week. And it's an event designed to connect Bermudians with jobs in one of the island's most important industries. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a success, but dig a little deeper and it raises some serious concerns. Because while 170 people attended, organizers were hoping for more, especially from students who were noticeably underrepresented. In fact, only a handful showed up at any given time, even though this industry is supposed to be a major pathway into employment. And here's the bigger issue. At the same time that employers are hosting job fairs, at the same time government is encouraging Bermudians to take these jobs, the hospitality industry is still struggling with high staff turnover, and difficulty retaining workers. So what's really going on? Is it that Bermudians don't want these jobs? Or is it that these jobs aren't offering what Bermudians need, whether that's pay, stability, or simply respect? Because we've been hearing this conversation for years. We hear about labor shortages. We hear about work permits being relaxed. We hear about businesses needing staff. But then we see job fairs and not enough people show up. And maybe the truth sits somewhere in the middle. Maybe the industry needs workers, but workers also need better conditions. Maybe young Bermudians don't see hospitality as a long-time career, and that it's a perception that, it's a problem we haven't fixed, right? Or maybe, just maybe, the disconnect between opportunity and interest is telling us something deeper about our economy. Because if 170 people showing up is considered decent, in a country where we constantly hear about jobs being available, then the question is, why aren't more Bermudians taking these opportunities? All right, let's talk about it. Again, audience, what are your thoughts? What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? That's you, me, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your children. What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? And also, do you believe a hospitality career is still a viable option for Bermudians? That's just a yes or no. All right. What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? Now, I thought 170 attendees was pretty good. I mean, as far as the Royal Gazette reports from Stephen Todd, 150 to 300 people is what, typically, has as far as attendances. So it is first career fair in 2 years. Now, there was concern, as I mentioned, about low student turnout. Very few students attended. Organizers had hoped there would be, students would make up at least half of attendees. Well, wouldn't that be down to the schools as well? Why aren't the schools encouraging young people or taking their students to the career fairs? Maybe the schools have lost all hope in the hospitality sector. The industry challenge is about retention, right? Major issues of keeping staff. That seems like that's more on those in the industry. That seems like they have to change something. Maybe I'm being tough, but if you hire people and you can't keep them, that says as much about them as it does about you. Yeah. Timing matters. Employers are trying to fill roles ahead of what's deemed to be a busy tourism season. Well, with the Fairmount Southampton Hotel expected to come back on board, remember the government kept saying this number of jobs, that number of jobs. And my question was always, well, how many of those jobs will be for Bermudians and how many of those jobs will actually come to fruition with technology now so prominent in so many industries and sectors? The bigger debate, though, is are Bermudians avoiding hospitality or are conditions unattractive? Do wages match Bermuda's cost of living? Should more investment go into training, career pathways, improving working conditions? One of my questions was, what are the positions that we're hiring for? Were they only entry level? I just saw on LinkedIn that St. Regis is looking for a butler throughout the Marriott brand. Are we training Bermudians to be butlers? Of the number of hotels we have in Bermuda, how many of the GMs are Bermudian? How many of the hotel managers are Bermudian? So these are things people look at. Like some people might say, look, you're only going to get so far in the hotel industry or the tourism sector because Bermudians don't traditionally hold those roles. So I understand the challenge. Having worked in the tourism space, I've worked in numerous hotels in Bermuda. Unfortunately, it was rare to have a Bermudian boss, especially a Black Bermudian boss that's relatable to me. Or, as far as the last census, the majority. Bermuda Tourism Authority, Bill Henberry was not Bermudian. Victoria Isley was not Bermudian. Kevin Dallas was not a Black Bermudian, nor relatable. Right? So you just go down the list of hotels. And this is not disrespect to them, but they'll say, well, we don't have Bermudians with hotel experience. Well, have you trained them? Have you given them access to get that training? This is a conversation that all of us need to be a part of, because there was a time when so many Bermudians, like a lot of people tuned into this show right now, this is how your parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts, this is how they grew their careers. This is how they made their money, built their homes, educated their children, maintained their homes. The hospitality sector was it. So again, the question this morning, this is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? And do you believe a hospitality career is still a viable option? Let's go to the audience and see what the audience is saying. Shawnette Sumner says, for decades, educators have been calling for hospitality to be taught in schools as part of the curriculum. Children are the best advertisers to promote hospitality. Decades later, we are still failing. Yeah, I do wonder why the schools didn't take students to the hospitality career fair. I would think that would be on them, because this is during school hours, right? Kenton Trott says, I would go back to hospitality tomorrow if the salaries were improved and consistent. That would be my only fear. Well, I've heard that too, because I know people who have tried hospitality and they're like, look, I need a regular paycheck. When the season goes slow, when it gets slow, I don't have any guaranteed income. I'm working less hours. And then shift work takes me away from my family. And then if my car breaks down, I can't make it to work because buses don't run to do late night shifts. We're not considering all this. We just think Bermudians are lazy or don't want to do the work or don't want to earn their right. There's a lot of factors to this, folks. Again, what are your thoughts? Again, they had just for those who are just tuning in, we're talking about the hospitality career fair that was held at Hamilton Princess. About 170 attendees showed up. Very few students, low student turnout. The industry is challenged with retaining staff. Timing is important because with the Fairmont Southampton about to open, there are some jobs that they say need to be filled. But the bigger question is, why are Bermudians avoiding hospitality? What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians to the industry, folks? What would they have to do to attract you, for instance? Let's say, knock on wood, that some of you lost your job today. You lost your employment, right? What would the hospitality sector have to do to get you there? Right? And do you believe it's still a viable career option? Dr. Anthony Richardson says the pay is too low and there continues to remain a disparity between benefits given to non-Bermudians and Bermudians, e.g. housing given to non-Bermudians, where the cost of housing takes the biggest chunk of a person's wage. Yeah, I've heard this, and I don't think this is just a hospitality thing. I've heard this throughout industries in Bermuda that people that come in, they give them housing. Some folks, they only get housing for like a specific period, maybe 3 months, 6 months. But that is a challenge. I think that is a bias, but in fairness, I don't think that's just Bermuda. I think to attract the best, sometimes you have to offer a bit more. But I take your point. I think that's something that needs to be considered. Maybe give a housing allowance or something like that. We've got WKD Lama says, yes, it is an option, a limited option. It's a limited option. As far as hospitality still being a viable career option. Folks, this is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. If you haven't already and you're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Again, the question of the morning is, what does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? Yeah. And do you believe a hospitality career is still a viable option for Bermudians? Michelle White says, can't fill 700 jobs with less than 200 people showing up to job fairs. But yes, a career is possible, but the industry must participate. Let's go through some different careers in the hospitality space, right? Some people think just room attendant, which is a career, right? You can start as a room attendant and work your way up to director of housekeeping and who knows, maybe a hotel manager. But there's front desk manager, right? There's reservations managers. There are various positions within hotels. There's PR, there's marketing, there's HR. There's head of restaurants, restaurant manager, food and beverage manager. It's not just, and I don't want to demean jobs, but I think when we think of hotels, we just think of being servants. And that's part of it, but that's not all of it. At the end of the day, what I think we all have to realize is if we work, if we have jobs, we are all of service. We are all delivering a service. It's not servitude, it's service. When I wake up every morning to have these conversations with you, I'm providing you a service that I hope you benefit from, that I hope you enjoy enough to keep coming back. Because everything I do depends on your response to it, right? I do believe that a career in hospitality can still be extremely viable, but I also believe that things have to change. Times have evolved. You can no longer pay people bare minimum and treat people as if they can't just get up and leave. And I know with technology coming, you may say, oh, well, technology can replace a front desk person with the check-in. They have it in many hotels, bars, and so on. But in this industry, truthfully, you still need people because it's a service industry. You still need people. That's the truth. All right, audience. Again, this is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. What does the hospitality sector need to do to attract more Bermudians? And do you believe a hospitality career is still a viable option for Bermudians? We've got Dr. Anthony Richardson says, Sterling or a hybrid version of it needs to be brought back into being. It has it was a perfect teaching source. Yeah, I think Charles H. Jefferson II speaks about that often. He speaks about that quite often. That was one of the worst mistakes Bermuda made, he said. Renee Shireland says, hospitality is becoming like the tourism product, null and void. It's seasonal. So that's a turnoff. Young Bermudians are looking for better pay and job security. We need a viable product here. So I want to address that because I actually don't disagree with Renee. For years, I remember the late Walton Brown speaking about it. His parents worked in hospitality. They had worked, 9-10 months a year and then, enjoy the time off. Unfortunately, the world has changed where people can't afford not to work. They need work year round. So the old ways of, yes, it was always seasonal, but the old ways of working back then, people can't afford that anymore. It's different. So I take your point, Renee. They're looking for better pay and job security. And, before, it's always been seasonal, but it worked out before because the cost of living back then isn't what it was today. What else, audience? What else you got? Michelle White says, hospitality traditionally is not a 9-to-5. The industry must step up and promote the benefits. Not everyone is cut out for the office. Personality is needed in hospitality also. Absolutely. Absolutely, Michelle. It's shift work. A lot of it's shift work. Now, if you are lucky to have one of the HR or marketing or PR or sales or maybe the hotel manager, the GM, you may not need to do shift work. But most of the jobs, whether it's bellman, might be room attendant, it may be working in one of the restaurants, events, which are held around the clock. You may have to work evenings and weekends. That is part of it. That is part of it, for sure. Dr. Anthony Richardson says, have hotels invest in a Stonington-style school and link the school to high school day release work experience. Okay. I like that. Allison Russell says, growing up, I wanted to work in hospitality like my dad. Pay is too low. Now gratuity system terrible, and guest workers need better training to work with Bermudians. New gratuity system. Okay. I always wanted to, work in hospitality and tourism. I did work in tourism and hospitality. Here's my take, and I'll probably say it again later on in this show. I think that the tourism and hospitality sector is one of, if not the most exploitive industries in the Western Hemisphere. I do. And I believe until we address that part of it, we're going to run into issues. I think we have to be honest. Like if you're a millionaire or billionaire and you decide to enter the hospitality and tourism space, you've got to understand the margins. In order to have a proper functional business, you're going to have to accept that the margins actually may be much lower. That to me is the fix. All right, audience, this was your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Just keep letting us know, yes or no, do you believe hospitality career is still a viable option for Bermudians? Just a yes or no to end it. And we're going to show some love to Titan Express and Secure. Then we'll go to the news break with Teo Dill. After that, we'll take our first commercial break. And we've got the opposition leader, Ben Smith, in for a conversation. So you don't want to go anywhere.
The daily discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Titan Express delivers safe, professional, and reliable transportation and tours across the island. From island tours to cultural experiences, they set the standard. And Secure is your go-to for property management, waste management, and residential and commercial services. Visit securebda.com. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is their commitment to you.
All righty, let's go to Teo Dill, but we did get some folks. I did ask, is hospitality still a viable career option in Bermuda? Judith Welch says yes. Dr. Anthony Richardson said yes. We've got Michelle White said absolutely yes. All right. Well, let's go to the Daily Hour news break, see what Teo Dill's got for us. And in the meantime, if you haven't already and you are streaming with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues.
Good morning, I'm Teo Dill, and welcome to your TDH News Break brought to you by the great folks at Peoples. Sometimes wellness is found in the smallest moments. A smile, a thank you, a helping hand. That's People's Pharmacy. The Ministry of Education is taking a deeper look at student performance, launching a full analysis of Cambridge, Checkpoint, and IGCSE results spanning more than a decade. The review covers results from 2012 through 2025 with the goal of identifying long-term trends and measuring how students are performing against the approved curriculum. Because Cambridge's grading systems and reporting methods have evolved over that period, the analysis is being handled directly by Cambridge International Education to ensure that the data is interpreted accurately and in proper context. Education officials say the findings will help assess the real impact of classroom instruction and highlight patterns in student achievement over time, and the results are expected early next month and will be shared publicly as part of a broader push to improve outcomes and make the system more transparent. Now, if it helps, the trend in declining education outcomes is not unique to Bermuda. In fact, across the developed world, student performance is moving in the wrong direction. Latest OECD data shows an unprecedented drop in math and reading scores, with declines already underway even before the pandemic and now accelerating across multiple countries.
There's been an unprecedented drop in performance across its 81 member countries. The survey is carried out every 3 years by the Paris-based organization to assess the ability of 15-year-olds to meet real-life challenges. The current edition shows decreasing achievements in mathematics, reading comprehension, and the sciences. This was the first large-scale study since COVID-19, but it found that shutdowns during the pandemic were not the only reason for the downturn. Other factors include the quality of teaching and the level of support pupils received at school.
And the police are urging the public to think twice before sharing content involving minors, especially when it shows distress or violence. The Bermuda Police Service says videos currently circulating on the local social media network, including one of a child in distress on a bus and another involving two teenage girls in a physical altercation, as discussed during yesterday's episode of TDH, Both involve minors. The message is clear. Do not share them. Instead, delete the clips, and if you have any information, pass it directly to the BPS. Officials say circulating this kind of content does not help. It risks causing further harm. So the ask is simple. Be responsible with what you share and let the authorities handle the situation. And a piece of Bermuda's history is now permanently on the map. A road in St. George's has been officially dedicated to Gina Swainson, a former Miss Bermuda and Miss World title holder, recognizing both her global impact and her deep local roots. The ceremony, led by the Corporation of St. George with support from government, highlighted not just her achievement on the world stage, but her long-standing connection to the town of St. George's. Swainson remains one of Bermuda's most internationally recognized figures, and now her legacy has a physical place at home, a lasting tribute to a moment and a name that put Bermuda on the global stage. Here's an excerpt from yesterday's press event celebrating the establishment of Gina Swainson Way.
So as we gather here today to officially dedicate the top of Government Hill Road, known to St. Georgians as the top and bottom road, as Gina Swainson Way. From this day forward, this road will carry the name of one of St. George's most celebrated daughters and one of Bermuda's greatest icons. We are proud to honor our former Miss Bermuda, Miss World, and St. George's resident, Miss Gina Swainson.
And a U.S. research breakthrough is unfolding just off Bermuda's shores, highlighting the island's growing role in global ocean science. A team from La Sierra University recently spent nearly a week at sea near Bermuda studying salps, tiny marine organisms that play a surprisingly big role in moving carbon dioxide into the deep ocean. The work, backed by a $200,000 U.S. National Science Foundation grant, is helping scientists better understand how the ocean naturally absorbs carbon. And Bermuda's waters are central to that research, offering unique conditions that make this kind of study possible. For Bermuda, this is another reminder that the island isn't just a destination, it's a platform for global science. And here's some more info about the specific details about this research into salps and why it matters.
You may have likely not heard of them, but you've definitely seen them if you've been in the ocean. They're kind of like jellyfish. They swim via jet propulsion by sucking water in their mouth and blowing it out their back end. You can see a picture of two behind me. The smaller one underneath is what we call a nurse. She produces clones that come out and look like the picture above her. What I'm interested in is salps. When they swim via jet propulsion, they've got these mucus nets that they use to filter feed algae. And they package that algae into tight little fecal pellets. And the fecal pellets are really cool because they look just like Captain Crunch.
And weather-wise, a cold front's moving in, which will bring a turn to wetter and windier conditions across the island. Today, we should expect extended periods of rain, possibly heavy/tank level periodically, with southerly winds strengthening and turning gusty, and even the chance of a rumble of thunder. Air temps should max out near 71 degrees with a low around 64, somehow with a UV index of 7, aka high. Looking ahead, that unsettled pattern continues into Friday before gradually easing into the weekend. And that's your TDH News Break, brought to you by our friends at Peoples. I'm Teo Dill. Now back to the show.
Alrighty, thanks so much for that, Tay. Folks, days of the year. Today, it's National Let's Laugh Day. And I want to ask you all, what's the last thing that made you laugh, like gave you a good laugh? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm pretty childish. You all think I'm so serious, but I love a good laugh. So thank me later. Thank me later. Just whether you use Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever search engine, type Afro Man. Thank me later. I laughed yesterday like I haven't laughed all year. Just type Afro Man and look at the lawsuit that he won yesterday, and then also go watch the video, Lemon Pound Cake. Folks, it is hilarious. Afro Man, thank me later. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the leader of the opposition, Ben Smith, for a very important community conversation. Yes, Lemon Pound Cake. Folks, thank me later. We'll be right back. Give us some love. Stick with us.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Take a look at our workwear for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
What lasts isn't what you buy, but what it becomes. With the HSBC MasterCard credit card, every spend quietly adds to a story shaped by intention and offers what matters most. Support that meets you where you are. Protection that preserves what you choose. Confidence for the unexpected. Peace of mind wherever your story leads. Start your next chapter. Use your card today. HSBC is licensed to conduct banking and investment business by the Bermuda Monetary Authority.
What if the age that really matters isn't the one on your ID? You probably know your chronological age, the number of candles on your last birthday cake. But there's another kind of age that may be even more important, your biological age. This reflects how old your body truly is at the cellular level. It is influenced by your genes, your environment, and the choices you make every day. Two people can both be 40 years old on paper, but one may have the body of a healthy 30-year-old, while the other is biologically closer to 50. The difference? Lifestyle choices on nutrition, sleep, stress, exercise, and exposure to toxins. That means you have some control over your biological clock, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because when it comes to aging, it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. Want to know your predicted biological age today? Download the free Carrier Genetics app and fill in the lifestyle questionnaire.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. I'm Jamal Hartman. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and a big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio areas with these most important community conversations. Folks, don't forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. I'm still laughing about Afro Man, folks. I'm sorry, I was just laughing. But what's the last thing made you laugh? Dr. Anthony Richardson said Josh Johnson. We've got Rick Olson says TV series on Apple Plus minus shrinking is a good laugh and touching at the same time. Renee Sherlin says video about Are You a Patient? Hilarious. Okay. All right. It's good to know you all laugh. We don't take life too seriously, right? Even though there's a lot going on in the world where people have no space to laugh. They're running for their lives and they are facing tough times due to the decisions of others. All right, folks. Well, without further ado, we've got a very special guest today, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the One Bermuda Alliance. Let's give a warm TDH welcome to Ben Smith. Greetings, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, Jamal?
Wonderful, wonderful. I got to ask you before we jump into anything, what's the last thing that made you laugh?
I was just thinking about I was watching a Trevor Noah clip like 2 days ago about him being in a restaurant in Ireland, and it was an Indian restaurant, and it had me laughing.
Trevor Noah will do it. That'll do it. You've never seen Trevor Noah. The thing about Trevor Noah, I don't know when he's serious or not because it's got this look, and that's what makes it funnier to me. It's like, is he being serious right now? Of course, his accent's phenomenal. But
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for doing this. Before we jump into the meat of the conversation, for those who don't follow politics, those who may not know much about you, just tell the audience away from politics a bit about your background and your journey into politics.
Yeah, so if I go back to the beginning, my father was Hubert Smith Sr., the entertainer. Bermuda's Another World. So I grew up in Southampton, went to Port Royal, then to Berkeley, and then I transferred to Saltus. I was a swimmer, went to Springfield College. So swimming was kind of my sport all through high school and into college. And then I came back and I actually started to get into swim coaching. And for the last almost 25 plus years, I've been coaching swim club, national team, traveled for Bermuda to Commonwealth Games, Pan Am Games, Olympic Games, and I've been working with young people probably, I would say, since I was 16 years old when I was first a lifeguard and then teaching swimming out at White's Island.
Interesting. We'll come back to that lifeguard thing as well, because that's a conversation in itself, right now. So since you've entered politics, you've stepped into a leadership at a critical time for the One Bermuda Alliance. What would you say is your immediate priority as you've taken the helm of the party?
So right away, it was to stabilize the team, get all of the different members of our party. I've been having one-on-one interviews with them, trying to get their feedback of where they thought the party was at the moment, where they wanted to see it go, meeting with stakeholders within the party, so that because obviously what also happened is we went directly into the budget after the leadership change. So it was quite a busy period from the political realm. But what I needed to do was get as much information as I could so that as soon as we got out of this budget, I was able to hit the ground running and try to mend some fences so that we could rebuild and be in a position to be not of just a viable opposition, but government in waiting.
You mentioned stabilizing the party. The decision to remove the former leader, Robert King, drew a lot of attention, right? How do you respond to those questioning the stability and direction of the party due to how that took place?
Well, the truth is the party is a lot stabler now than it was prior to that decision being made. There are times that you have to have leadership that is focused on bringing people together. One of the things that we have been building over the last 5 years specifically is to bring different people from different backgrounds into one room. That is a difficult thing to be able to work with different people that have different viewpoints. As you know, from what you do, there's varying kind of opinions that different people have. So you need to have the ability to listen to those different opinions, to allow people to feel that they're valued in that space, but also be able to come together with a consensus so that everybody understands, although you might not get your exact opinion put forward, we are all working in the same direction. That is really what needed to happen. And that's why the change had to happen when it did.
Indeed. Audience, if you have any questions or comments for the opposition leader, Ben Smith, you can send them through at any time, and I'll get to them as soon as we can. I'll get to as many as we can. For many Bermudians, the key question right now when it comes to politics and politicians is credibility. What makes the OBA under your leadership a serious and viable alternative government?
Well, I think it based off of what I was just talking about. It is the option to have different people from different backgrounds. If you look at the way Bermuda's made up, some of what is happening in our country right now seems a bit complicated because we've shifted the industry significantly from, it was in part of your topic earlier, we were a hospitality industry run country, right? I said that my father was an entertainer, so I grew up in a hospitality household. Almost everybody here, my age and above would have been connected to hospitality in some way. Well, we moved to this international business base, and it changed the makeup of the country. It changed kind of what people thought value for work was. So you have to have people in your room that are going to be speaking and advocating for tourism, speaking and advocating for education, and people in the room that understand and are speaking and advocating for business. Having all of those different people in the room gives you a better understanding of what is happening throughout your community, so that when you are making a decision, when you are putting forward what it is that you want to do as a party, it's taking in all of those values. I would say that was not always the case in the past. That is why we were making the changes that we were. But the next step, and the most important step, is now to be in the community more often, so that we can get more of that information from our community and build a trust within Bermuda.
It seems like Bermudians need to be inspired to believe in politicians or politics again. The election was held in Barbados recently, and one of the lowest turnouts, despite the dominance by the Honorable Mia Moore Motley and her party. Low turnout. We saw low turnout last year in our election. And people think low turnouts will benefit the One Bermuda Alliance, but of course you don't want to win that way. You want to inspire people to vote for you. What more do you need to do? Because I've heard it from your colleagues, and I think I'm hearing it from you, saying that you have people from all backgrounds. Go a bit deeper on backgrounds, because I think the PLP actually do have people from various backgrounds. Many of them look alike, right? What does all backgrounds mean to the OBA, and how does it help us progress past where we are?
Well, I think one of the things that has to happen is I think that the community needs to be able to identify with the people that are running. I think that not just Bermuda, but worldwide, the connection between the population and the politician has disappeared over a period of time. It's kind of connected to how, I guess, regular society works. We spend so much time, we're on social media. We've changed the way that we interact with each other. So now that disconnect has created probably a bigger gap than people realize, right? A lot of us would have grown up with politicians sitting in your living room, in your neighborhood. They would be at events that you had access to them. I think those changes that have happened are not for the good, right? We're such a small community, and having an understanding that a lot of our issues that are in our neighborhoods are small community issues, not always what is the impact from the big scale. So many times in politics, you're talking about, what's happening with the economy at the top level, but what is the impact to everyday people? Being in your community and understanding what that is, what is the impact on your family? So when I say having different people within our, not just people that are running for the party, but people that are in your caucus, knowing what the impact of everyday living in Bermuda is having, but having it at different levels of the community, because we have to admit it. If you have a high-paying IB job, that is not the same as somebody, as you were saying, that potentially is working in hospitality and working long hours. We have to figure out as a country how we are going to pull those pieces together. I listened to your point earlier when it comes to hospitality. How do we encourage our young people to actually get involved in it? we've heard several times in Bermuda things like we need to have a trade school. You had people coming in messaging just now about hospitality school. The problem is, how are we inspiring young people to actually want to participate in those industries? You can give them the opportunity, but if the opportunity is not something that they're interested in taking, it's a wasted venture. We as a community have to once again be excited about hospitality, be excited about what that means as an industry and what it can be as a benefit. But if we don't believe it and we don't as adults start to portray that, there's no way that the young people are going to be inspired to be involved in those industries.
Indeed. Looking at the broader picture, how do you assess the current state of Bermuda, and what do you see as the most urgent issues facing the country right now?
Well, so urgently, education has to be the focus point. And the reason education has to be the focus point is that the technology is changing what our future is going to look like, and it's happening very fast. So if we are not giving the tools to our young people now, what you're going to see for the next generation, they're going to fall even further behind. We have an economy right now that, because it is so heavily reliant on international business and that sector, and the salaries that are attached to it, it is creating this gap between the people that can afford to live in Bermuda and the people that can thrive in Bermuda. That has to be our focal point. You will see it in some of the kind of major issues that are happening in Bermuda from a housing perspective. Part of that is happening because of this shift in the dynamic of people with finances and international business are able to pay higher rents. They're able to get housing as soon as they have the ability to purchase a house. They can purchase a house, where the Bermudian who potentially is not in international business is on a much slower track and is falling behind. When you're knocking on doors now, you are finding Bermudians that are in professional industries that are having a hard time finding a place that is suitable to rent at a suitable price to rent. When you go to the grocery store, you're also finding that it's very difficult to be able to feed your family healthy food because the prices of food has continued to increase. In the headlines right now, we are seeing what the insurance rates are doing to us. We are going to have to focus on this balance between the growing part of our economy and what that means to the people that are being left behind.
Audience, I'm going to get to your comments and questions in a few, so you can keep them coming. Rebuilding and repositioning a party takes time, right? I went on record on our end of year special saying that I did not see that Mr. King would make it to the end of the year as being the leader of the One Bermuda Alliance. Well, that prediction didn't take long. It was less than 2 months. And people have asked me in private, why did I feel that way? And for me, it was from the outside. I don't know what goes on in the One Bermuda Alliance, but something you said earlier, it didn't seem like a party that was together in that short amount of time. I can actually say from the outside, it didn't feel like it was together. But also, you also said something about being out there in the community and actually it's feeling organic. Is what I'm getting from you, having an organic connection. I didn't get that from Mr. King, and this is not to down Mr. King, because this is something that I've said previously on this program without you. That said, you're now the head of the opposition party. What specific changes can the public expect to see in how the OBA operates and connects with the voters? You kind of just said it, but just go a bit deeper.
So you're actually touching on the part that I think is the most important, right? So it is, if somebody has a perception of you, you can't just change that perception by saying something differently. It's going to be behavior. The message that I will be pushing to my team and to our caucus is that this can't be about words. This has to be about actions. It is going to be the actual behavior, how we are engaging with our community, being in our community. This can't be me being in the office and expecting people to come to me. I have to go to the people. That is the change that has to happen. And in Bermuda, it seems that a lot of times we separate into our different kind of groups, and we don't push to try to be uncomfortable. And I think that that's what has to happen. Sometimes you have to say, you know what, it might be uncomfortable to go to a place that you don't normally go to. But when you go there, you'll probably find, wait a minute, this was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. You have to break down some of the barriers that I think we have in our community in multiple ways. That is what the challenge is. And to me, doing that and doing it organically, it takes time. But once you do that, people then maybe look at you and go, well, maybe that's not who I thought that person was. And you know what? He actually does believe in the same things that I do. And maybe we have some similarities that I didn't realize because we had this wall up between us. And it's a perception wall that has to be broken down because we're a small community that so many of us have, many things that we grew up are very similar to each other. If we start to break those things down, that is how you can build trust. And building trust, I believe, is how you change people's opinion when they go to the voter booth, because they have to be able to say, you know what, this person's believing in the same things as me. And maybe I wasn't willing to change from one party to the other before, but instead of voting party, I'm going to vote for the person who is going to do what is best for me and for my community.
Thank you so much. And you kind of just answered Dr. Anthony Richardson. He said, what are your plans for making the OBA an effective opposition, not just in terms of gaining more seats, but in terms of gaining the trust of more Bermudians? And let's talk about trust, because I have a colleague who just they told me they voted for the OBA in the last election, first time ever going that direction. But they have a huge trust problem because of past OBA leadership. And between them and another friend said, and these are grown men going 40, black males, they said the OBA scares them. It scares them based on what they experienced in that short time between 2012 and 2017, the amount of things that were promised that didn't come to fruition. How can people trust that? I mean, you kind of spoke on it just now, that we're past that. We're past that.
Listen, it takes time. And I think trust is something that you have to build. It is not something that, I can just say, Jamel, I need you to trust me, and you're immediately going to do so, and you don't know anything about me, and you haven't seen, right? Because what has to happen is, if I say I'm going to do something and then I do it, that's your first step to say, okay, well, his words have value. Now it's the actions, and it's the actions that you do when no one's watching, right? It's that part that is the difficult. So many times you'll hear us say words like accountability and transparency that we want to be from a political standpoint, but those can't just be words. For me, this has to be, no, these are the actions that you are seeing on a daily basis. From a party perspective, if we are not going to hold people accountable for the things that they say they're going to do, then how can we then be a government and hold workers within the government to do the things that need to be done in order for us to achieve what has to happen in our country? Those are the steps that have to happen. And you do that internally, then you do that within your community, and then people get to see on a step-by-step basis. And this is what we were building and what we will continue to build. The feedback that I've received in the community since this change has been positive. And I'm going to say that feedback has come from all walks of life. And to me, that is the most important part. You can't be a government that is for one part of the country. You have to be for everybody. And the only way to do that, you have to build that trust, build that relationship with all of the community. And that is the task that my colleagues have given to me, and that's what we'll continue to work for.
All right. Dr. Anthony Richardson is asking, how will the OBA finally grapple with its Achilles heel, the subject of race and race relations in Bermuda? Now, I listened to the House last year, April. That was my first time listening in years because I just, I matured a bit and just couldn't take the bickering. I'm just being frank with you. It was a lot. And it's hard, tough to follow at times. But that said, I tuned in. And I think it was the time when Ms. Smith and Mrs. Tucker gave their maiden speeches, which I thought was awesome. But it was that night that reminded me that, and again, if you don't listen to the House, you don't know this, but the OBA as a party still to this day does not know how to respond when race is brought up. So I think that question by Dr. Anthony Richardson is actually very important. Like, how will the OBA finally grapple with its Achilles heel, the subject of race relations in Bermuda?
So the first thing I'm going to say is it's not just an OBA problem. Bermuda doesn't actually grapple with race. This is a conversation that has to be had. In the House of Assembly, the behavior, I'm going to put it as simply as this, can be toxic. Some of the things that are said towards different members that are based specifically on race, if people were listening to the House, if the House was televised, which is something that I do advocate for, people would see clearly some of the behavior that happens in those spaces. But what we have to do is we have to have a face-to-face conversation about it. And one of the things that I will be doing with our party is let's have the conversation and let's continue to have the conversation, because the conversation of race is not a one-time, one chat. You have to talk about it all the time. We do have separations in our community, and the separations sometimes are based on race. Sometimes they're based on, how much money one group has over another. There are, just earlier on, I was talking about the fact that we have these kind of invisible barriers that are built up between different parts of our community. Race is one of those things. I say to people, if you can, so many times we have to go to an event, you go to the event and there's only, one race in the entire event. And then you go to another one and you'll see it and it's the opposite direction. So the question becomes, can you be comfortable being in both of those environments? And if not, you should start to ask yourself why, and are you willing to make adjustments to how you behave in order to make those changes? Part of it is questioning things. I put out a couple of opinion pieces right before Christmas break because I wanted us to start to have this conversation. There are things that are said by different groups within our community that have racial undertones, and we never actually address them. So if we have the One Bermuda Alliance, up until recently, if somebody says something and they're pressing what I call the race button, no one's willing to speak back. No one's willing to speak up about it. And because of it has been used as a weapon. We're going to press this button because you guys are representing a specific group. Well, I'm going to continue to say I don't represent one group. I represent everybody in Bermuda. We are the first generation of One Bermuda Alliance. So anything that happened that was, against one race or another, or advantage to one over another, then I do not support that, and I will not support that. We have conversations that are happening that are separating different groups of our community, speaking badly against certain groups of our community, and it happens all the way up at the House of Assembly level. Well, think about it. If leadership isn't willing to address this and to deal with it properly, then how can we as a community deal with it? And when you see the conflicts that are happening in different parts of our community, where we have to address it and we have to start to break down these barriers, or we will not see the progress that I think all of us want to see for our people. I grew up in a household with a father that was telling me the exact stories that he had to go through with segregation, going through the back of hotels in order to be an entertainer in Bermuda. That's the life that he lived, and he was passing that information on to me. So for anybody to think that I don't understand that kind of position and what that means to our community, and of course, those same kind of things happen to me. So doesn't mean that I'm going to not only be bitter and not willing to actually have the conversations. What I'm saying is those conversations have to happen, and they're going to continue to happen. And I'm going to start that process internally before I start to take it to the community. We have to be open and honest about the divisions that are happening in our community every day.
Indeed. Thank you. Rick Olson says, I am not an OBA member, and like many people, don't feel like voting anymore due to not happy with either party. In my opinion, the OBA has no idea on how to connect with the average Black Bermudian. How can that be improved?
It's such a strange comment, right? I am an average Black Bermudian. So what does that comment mean? And this is the part that I'm saying when we throw out these kind of comments, neither person is actually putting themselves in a position to have a proper conversation, right? So we have to stop generalizing and making comments that are not helpful. Let's actually have a conversation with each other. It can't be, you've made an assumption about one person or whatever it is. If you look at the people within our party, they are majority average Black Bermudians. So for somebody to make a comment that we can't actually communicate or connect with them, they're our family members. Of course we can connect with them. It doesn't. So I reject that kind of conversation. And what I will say is the point of the One Bermuda Alliance is we will be connecting with all of the community. And that is going to be by going out and being part of the community at community events, opening up the ability for people to come up to us and talk to us all the time, not just when we make an appointment for somebody to talk to us. The barriers have to be broken down, and we have to stop with the kind of lazy version of having the conversation. Let's have a proper dialogue about how we break down the barriers of race in this country.
I hear you, but it takes me to the US politics, right? There were two very different ways of approach. Kamala Harris, in an interview, said, of course, I'm not going to do things just for Black people, right? I'm going to do some stuff for everyone. And the Black community, men in Black community, were like, oh. And they left her where she was. On the other side, it was about America first. And then if you want to go a bit deeper, conservative white America. And so two different ways of doing things. And of course, I'm not doing anything just for one group, I'm doing it for all, wasn't successful. So that said, if you compare that with Bermuda, would you say that that's a hindrance? I mean, obviously you're doing things in good conscience, but would you say by trying to appeal to everyone, it's like business, right? You can't be all things to all people. In business, you market towards a specific group, but also then you try to take care of, those others who might be supporters of your group. Should we look at it like that? Or are you steadfast and sticking with, no, we have to promote that we're for all people?
Well, the difference is the size of the community. Bermuda's tiny. We're a small town, right? So we have to be about all the people that are in our community. So this idea that we could separate that doesn't actually work. But if you look at the policies that we've been putting forward, the example is what's been going on in the budget debate. We are saying that if you are trying to give relief to people that need it the most, then you target that relief to make sure that you're supporting that group of people. The government is actually doing the opposite. They're saying, well, we're going to give the tax breaks to all. So the people that are already advantaged continue to get advantage. So the question becomes, when you look at those two things, should I be separating them by the need? And if we're separating by the need, if you are in need, it doesn't matter whether you're Black, white, what your gender is, you're in need. So that has to be the way that we focus what we're doing. If you are doing anything else, then you're leaving parts of your community out. So I believe that this is what we have to do, because we have to take care of all of Bermuda. And that's what everybody from on our team is about. And that's what we'll continue to strive for.
All right. Got quite a few questions, comments. Judith Welch says, Mr. Smith, what data will the OBA use to explore what is happening with education? I am thinking of the Gates-McGinnis reading assessment.
So I've said several times that we need this, what I'm calling an independent education authority, so that they would be collecting the data. What you've just seen is that the government is now saying they're going to an assessment and look at the data over the last 10 plus years. It is odd that you would have started a reform and started to move down, this very specific direction in a reform if you hadn't collected the data already to tell you where you were, what was wrong, and what you were actually trying to fix. Every decision has to be data driven. One of the biggest problems they have in Bermuda is that we're making decisions based off of a population size that we don't actually know what the population size is. So from an education standpoint, why is it that the majority of the students in Bermuda are now in private school, right? It's a simple thing for the government to say, oh, well, we have to take care of all of the students in public school. Yes, but we used to have a public school system that was the majority of the students. If you have a world-class education in a public school, why would somebody pay extra money to send their child to private school? It just doesn't make any sense. No one would just want to actually spend extra money to do that. So what is it that parents are looking for that is telling them, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice this extra money and send my child to private school? Well, part of it is they have to be confident that the system is going to work, that it is actually going to get the result that we're looking for. Because as I stated, the future that's coming up on us means that you have to have your students prepared for something that most of us don't even know what that's going to look like in the next 10 years.
Yeah, indeed. 9/11 Island Girl says, Bermuda can't track the number of Bermudians who've left, so I doubt they are tracking how many have come to stay. With hundreds immigrating, housing for Bermudians is nil. Why should Bermudians accept Lego housing? Lego housing.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting, and it is something that we've heard on the doorstep, right? So you're using different wording for it, right? At one point it was container housing, and then it's capsules, and listen, there's a couple of factors that have gone into play here. So as non-Bermudians have received the ability to get a PRC and then the ability for them to purchase houses, they purchase houses, which is what the housing kind of market has been. So when we talk about, oh, well, the sales of houses is actually up, but when you dig a little deeper and figure out where those houses are being sold, they're being sold by Bermudians to someone who has moved from non-Bermudian to PRC. Those houses have come off the market. A lot of times, if there's an apartment attached to those houses, they've either come off the market or the price tag is moved to a level that is only available to a select few. It does not make sense. If you look at anybody that walks around Bermuda can tell you that the population is not what it was. So we're going to have a census. We'll figure out what that actual number is. But there's no way that we can be decreasing our population. Remember, our birth rate is negligible. So our death rate is higher than our birth rate, which means that we are a decreasing population just from that statistic alone before you add immigration. If those numbers are just basic data, you would think that there's more apartments available, right? So with that extra demand, the price tag should be going down, but things are moving in the opposite direction. We are going to have to start to have city building, right? You're going to have apartment buildings. One of the things that it was a decision that was made a long time ago in Bermuda to move the country to suburbanization, right? So if you look at Bermuda, it's almost equal amount of housing throughout the entire island, where if you look at most jurisdictions, you're going to see kind of pockets of where people live. And a lot of times that's going to be close to the city. Bermuda really didn't do that. They moved everybody out to the outskirts, which then causes all the other issues. We have transportation issues. We have road infrastructure issues because the roads were never built for the amount of traffic and the size of cars and the things that we're doing. So many things that we have right now are based off of us not starting with what is the exact data? What is the population size that we have now? What does it need to grow to? How are we going to grow that? And how are we going to do that in a way that doesn't continue to displace the everyday Bermudian who is falling so far behind that they're opting out, right? Every person has multiple people in their family that have now left. So we don't have to have somebody tell us that the population is shrinking. We know it because family members have left, because friends have left. That is the reality of it. And I hear the concept from an emergency standpoint that you're going to have container homes and these capsules, but there's no way that Bermudians are looking at that and saying, well, this can't be the future that you want for us, that people are getting to purchase, big, beautiful Bermuda homes that were built by the generations that built them through tourism. And now I'm going to have to live in a container or a capsule. They're going to opt out. They're going to move out of the country.
And that brings us to this question by Mark Arthur. When the results of this year's census are released, what are some ways you believe we could encourage more Bermudians to come back, to come home?
Well, what we're going to have to do is actually create an environment that makes them want to be here. And it is a balancing act. Because if you look at the size of the population right now, it actually makes it where there's not a lot happening. So from a hospitality standpoint, one of the major factors for people getting into the hospitality industry is that there has to be enough customers to drive revenue that is allowing people to make money. When the restaurants are full every night, people say, hey, I'll be a waiter, I'll be a bartender because there's actually enough money to support myself. That's the big change from where hospitality was to where it is now. Well, it's also, if you want to move back to Bermuda and you're not in the hospitality industry, you also want to be in a place that's vibrant. And you wonder why our young people, after leaving and going to university and seeing the bigger space, why they're not coming back to Bermuda, because there's not a lot that we're offering. But what we have to do is really spend some time connecting between the jobs that are available, the schooling that our young people are going through, connected to internships that then lead to jobs. That is the connection. We have to increase the networking in multiple industries, not just in the international space. We also need to get back to the times when we had our tradesmen taking on more and more apprentices. And we're going to have to probably do this at a younger age just to get our young people kind of encouraged at a younger point before they start to feel, well, I can't do that job. I don't want to do that job. As we look at what AI is going to do in the jobs that are going to disappear, you're not going to see them disappear in carpentry. You're not going to see them disappear in plumbing. Those jobs are still going to be there. And those are actual jobs that you can make good money in Bermuda, because if you look around, a lot of the construction companies, these people are making good money.
Yeah. I got a few responses to your response to Rick Olson. Michelle Grant says, how about you acknowledge how people feel and find a way to bridge the obvious connection gap? Don't shut it down. The way you handle our feedback and questions speaks volumes too. And then Rishi Johnston says, I think that response highlights the real problem. Perspective is reality. So it might be more productive to take the feedback and try to figure out why that is the feeling rather than dismissing it. Speak to that, because again, I'm not a politician, but in doing this, I do try to be a bit more open to people, although, I'm not the best at it. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. So the issue is that I actually said it earlier, right? It's this perception becomes reality. And so many times what happens in Bermuda, it is, people will say, well, we don't know anything about a person, but they have created this image of the person based off the perception that they received from somebody else. And they don't really take it any further than having that kind of open conversation. So I understand the perception that's been put there. What I'm saying is, the perception isn't matching the reality. So to tell somebody that is an average Black Bermudian that they don't connect to average Black Bermudians is odd when you're saying they don't connect to themselves. And when you go across our team, that is multiple people, right? So at some point, the person who's making that comment has to at least pause for a second and say, well, wait a minute, there has to be a little bit more than this. It can't just be this perception that I picked up from, you know, what is in the press, what somebody else has said. Because the truth of the matter is, the reason that perception is there is because the PLP has repeated it over and over again for 20 plus years. So now that becomes the reality that everybody has heard. So to undo that, it's going to be a lot of time of people pushing back. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is pushing back against the narrative. It is the only way for us to be able to undo it. And I'm sorry that it comes across that I'm taking it a certain way, but the truth is I have to push back against the narrative that's been put on us by somebody who is doing it for a political gain.
Yeah. Let's we've got Dr. Anthony Richardson, a couple of similar questions like this. He's asking, how will the OBA get from under the shadow / ghost of the UBP? Former UBP people now prop up the OBA. Doesn't these optics make it difficult for you to change? And then Mark Arthur had similar question. There are some members of our society that will always connect the OBA with the UBP. Mark Arthur goes on to say, what are some ways the OBA can distance themselves from the UBP? And before you go, I just want to say, I remember when the One Bermuda Alliance became government after 2012, there was a period once Craig Kemner was unfairly ousted, I stand by that, and replaced with Michael Dunkley. There was a cabinet full of UBP people at one point. And so, again, going back to what I said about my friends earlier, they just cannot trust the One Bermuda Alliance. It's scary to them how they conducted themselves, even though they say we're not the UBP. But how do you get around that? I mean, obviously, you've been OBA, you were never a UBP senator or MP.
Once again, it has to happen organically. If we don't keep kind of showing who we are and showing the differences and having people kind of open their mind to that change, then that is our major task. That's the thing that we have to spend our time and energy doing. It is interesting now because there's such a large generation of our population who were never under UBP, don't even know what they stand for, they don't even know what it means. It was such a long time ago. It is brought up as a narrative, once again, put there by the Progressive Labor Party and repeated over and over again. The part that I find interesting with that is that presently when the Progressive Labor Party says that, they're saying it with multiple leaders of the UBP sitting in their room, including one of them sitting in their cabinet. So the idea, once again, this is this kind of double status, right? Where somebody who's never been part of it has to answer for it, while there's a group on the other side that's actually embraced those people and they don't ever have to answer for it. What I will say is there are things that happened in our country in the period where the United Bermuda Party was the government that were foundations that the rest of the country that we live in today was built off of. So at no point can anybody point out that everything that happened under any party was all negative or all positive. That's just, it would be a falsehood. And I'm going to put that through all the UBP generation, through PLP, through OBA, to where we are right now. Now, with that, it's about people. It's about individuals and what they stand for and whether they are doing what is in the best interest of the country, of your community, and trying to help your people. That is the only thing that we can do. And that is what our team will be doing. So if helping you isn't enough and you need to have a moniker that says, well, you know, you were connected to the UBP that was a party way back in beginning of 2000, 26 years later, we are completely different people that would never have joined the One Bermuda Alliance if the One Bermuda Alliance was UBP, people that have come from the Progressive Labor Party, people who were not involved in politics. Those are all the different people that are in our room. And with all of that group, we are striving to do what's best for Bermuda, and we will continue to do so, and hoping that people will start to look at us for what we are doing and not whatever moniker is being put on us by the Progressive Labor Party.
We've got Charles H. Jeffs II. He says, does Mr. Smith believe that Bermuda could benefit from a master plan that addresses all of our major issues, which I think we all agree are interconnected? Addressing issues in silos doesn't work, in my opinion.
He is 100% correct. It's the reason why I was pointing to the fact that you actually have to look at all of the data and pull together what are the things that are working really well. How do we move forward with those, increase deficiencies, change the things that are not working, and then do it all in a way that is holistic, that helps all of the community. Right? Because if you're not doing it, so many times what happens is you think this is the solution and you start moving in that direction, not knowing that it is going to have these other outputs that you were not expecting that then negatively impact other parts of your community. It has to be a full plan. And really, we have to be looking at it and saying, where do we want Bermuda to be 20 years from now? And then we're working towards that systematically. And that is going to be from an education standpoint. How do we want to deal with, the services that are in our country? What do they look like now? What are they going to look like? Picking up ideas that happen in other countries, but making sure that they are fit for purpose for Bermuda, because not everything that you see on the internet, not everything you see that works in another community will work in Bermuda. We have to understand our small community, and sometimes some of those changes have an impact that we weren't expecting. And some of the negative impacts that we're going through right now are because of some of those kinds of decisions where you didn't look at if we do this, what are the things that might happen, right? You have to actually look at all of those. If I press this button, it's going to do these three things. I can live with one of them. I can't live with the other two. And for that reason, I either have to change this decision or I can't do it at all.
I want to go take one or two more questions from the audience. James Burgess says, what was the real reason for dismissing Mr. King? Is there anything else you need to add to that?
Listen, I've said it several times in different places, but I'll put it to you this way. The team that actually has to do the working of the party did not have confidence in Mr. King, and that was became evident very early in his leadership. They then gave him time, told him the things that they needed to see changed, and those things didn't change. And we would not have been in a position to do the things that we are doing now if we had continued down that track. This is not a personal thing against Mr. King, and he is part of our team and actually is working with us to get to the destination that we are trying to reach. But at the time, it did not make sense for us to continue to, so many people say, well, why did you do it so quickly? Well, the question is, if you know that something isn't working, waiting doesn't change that. It just means that the damage that is done potentially is more because you've taken more time and allowed more damage to happen. And one of the major factors would have been people deciding to leave the room if we had continued down that path. And for that reason, we just couldn't wait any longer.
How is leader? And I took this note earlier on my little whiteboard. How as leader can you trust someone like Mr. King to remain a part of a team like yours, what you're speaking of, then, I mean, I'm going to be honest, he's a better man than me, because you tell me you don't want me as your leader in that manner, I'm not sticking around. So how can you trust that this is going to be a component that's going to be helpful to the team going forward after how it went down?
Well, the first thing you have to do is just have open communication, right? So the very first thing I did was tell him that I wanted him to continue to be part of the team. And I know that as a person, there is a healing process whenever something doesn't go the way you want it to go, and it's done in a public way. Listen, politics is not an easy space to be in. And when you put your name forward, and in a small community, people are going to see you every place that you go. It's a difficult spot to be in. But you know what? Mr. King put his name forward to be the leader. And he has showed up, continued to be in the House of Assembly, do the things that he needs to do. Because at the end of any of this situation, if you're putting the community first, then that's what you'll continue to do.
I want to go back to lifeguards. I wrote that earlier as well. You said you were a lifeguard, and recently, late last year, the government mentioned that they had brought in a group of lifeguards from the UK. As a space that you were very familiar with, something you're very passionate about, what do you believe, just as a Bermudian, not even the opposition leader, as a Bermudian, how do we get here where we need non-Bermudian lifeguards? And how do we get Bermudians back into that space, a space that you know very well?
So if you look at where we actually attract our lifeguards from, right, that becomes part of that's the initial problem. So most lifeguards are going to be the ones that you see on the beaches in the summer. These are going to be students. So if somebody who, is a strong swimmer, who gets involved, goes through the process, gets their certification, they then become a lifeguard, and they're either going to do pool lifeguarding or they're going to do lifeguarding like we have on our beaches. But 2 years in the summer, they've done that. And now third year, they take on an internship because they're actually moving towards the degree they're going to get. So now you lose that person. So you're immediately going to get turnover just from a basic level. Well, also that means that when those students go to school, they leave, and now you have this gap where they've gone back to school in the early part of August. So now in a period of time that you actually have to have lifeguards, you don't have them. You might get some that hang on a little bit longer, but the truth is it's mostly a young person's game when it comes to lifeguarding the way we have it set up presently. Now, in other jurisdictions, you are going to see people that take on lifeguarding more as a career. One of the things that has to happen, in my opinion, locally, is we have to kind of link it up more how we have our fire service. These are your first responders. This person is doing everything to save life, and they're doing it connected to water. This is a very difficult job. It's actually high stress job. And when you look at, we bring in these huge cruise boats, put all these people on the beach. So many of these people haven't exercised or been in the water in a really long time. And now you have these people that are having to save them. Well, the longer our cruise boat season is, you're actually now realizing that you're needing to have protection on your beaches year round. So you're going to have to change the way that we've been thinking about lifeguards. And now that is going to mean you're also going to have to change the payment that you're giving to lifeguards. To expect somebody to do that level of job with that level of risk at a salary that most people wouldn't leave the job that they're doing now to do, they're not going to do it. And we just have to be honest with the cost of living in Bermuda. For somebody to take on that kind of responsibility locally and train and say, this is what I want to do as a career, you're going to have to pay for it. I actually had a conversation with some people that I know that are lifeguards or have been around that area just recently. And I said, what would it take to attract you to go there? And it's a significant salary. And that's just the reality in Bermuda right now. So until that shifts, you're going to end up with people that are going to come in from overseas where the salary that we are offering makes sense to them because they are sending that money outside of Bermuda. It's actually connected to every other decision that happens in Bermuda. Cost of living, the ability to actually thrive in your own community means that we have to look at these jobs differently and figure out whether, if we need them at that level, we have to give the resources in order to attract the Bermudian to do the job.
As I know time's of the essence, but before you head out, there are people tuned in this morning. Like I said earlier, they're checked out. They have no interest in politics. Even if they did, the OBA, and as some have said in the comments, the EBP would not be one to consider. What would you say to those who are so checked out, they just think, regardless of who's in power, nothing's going to change? The 5 years of the OBA in government did nothing to change my perspective of them. What would you say as the leader, a person who, as you said, no attachment to the EBP as an MP or senator? What would you say to get them to believe in you and your party?
What I would say is I don't actually want you to look at party perspective. And yes, we are from the One Bermuda Alliance, but I think it is important that Bermudians in our community start to look at the individuals that are going to represent them. And the reason I put it that specific way is people have said, well, nothing's going to change. Well, if you say that, then really what you have to do is, well, you have to become the change. If you want your community to look different, if you have expectations and you want accountability and you want changes in your community, what is it that you're expecting from your politician to get to it? And when they come to knock on your door, if you're not asking them those questions, if you're not pushing them, challenging them to make those changes, and the best way to do that is you're going to have to vote them out, right? People have to change how they're behaving. Right now, if there is no chance that that is going to be a change, then they won't change their behavior. And you said it earlier, if you've got an election where only a third of the population is actually going out and voting, then the result that you get in your community is based off of your engagement. So you've showed that it's not important to you. So get engaged, start to pay attention to what's happening in your community. The frustration has to lead to conversation. It has to lead to, I need my politician to do better. I need you to do the things that are in the best interest of our community. If our community is not holding the politicians accountable, we will continue to see the cycle that we are on. The more we have people that are kind of opting out and spending time on the couch or opting out of the country, the more we will be moving in the direction that I believe we are moving right now, and it can't be. So for us, we are going to do that by being in the community, talking to people and saying, you know what are the things that you value? What is it that you want from your politics, from your politician? What is the direction that you want to see your country go? Because if you don't speak up, if you don't kind of advocate for yourself, then what you're going to end up with is more of the same.
I'll say this before you head out. Prior to the February election, all 5 OBA MPs, I believe only one was already an MP, which may have been the honorable former leader, Jarian Richardson, but all of them won their seats that were not previously held by the OBA. Take what you will from that, but I'm just saying the Daily Hour means something. But I thank you for making time, honestly. Thank you for making time to engage with us live and having this conversation. And just to be clear, Mr. Smith was supposed to, we had this conversation a long time ago, but we were so booked. So it's not like he came after things died down. I want to make that clear about the leadership thing. But thank you for making time. And I hope that your colleagues and yourself remain open to going places where you can engage people live and take questions and really get a feel for how people are feeling. So all the best to you, sir. And hopefully it's not the last conversation we have, because I'd love to speak with you more, and I'm sure this audience more, about education itself, as that is your shadow ministry, and it's something that you are very passionate about as I read the various things that you write about it. So thanks for making time for us, and hopefully we can connect again sometime soon.
Definitely, and thank you for the opportunity, Jamal.
No problem. Ben Smith, folks, opposition leader of One Bermuda Alliance. If you appreciated that conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We're going to take our final break, but don't come back because we've got a daily play coming up. And I'll give my final thoughts. Stick with us.
Life moves fast, and so can the unexpected. When you insure your home, you need to know that your insurance company has your back. At Friesenbrook, let one of our friendly and professional agents give you that peace of mind. Because when you are covered, you are confident. Call us at 296-3600 or visit friesenbrook.bm to learn more.
Bermuda, there's nothing like a home-cooked meal, especially when you can feed the whole family without stretching your wallet. With the affordable Bermuda basket, you'll find savings on everyday staples like rice, chicken, corn, and more. Everything you need to make a good meal for less. Shop the Bermuda basket at Lindo's, Marketplace, the Garden Market, and the English Market. Visit costofliving.gov.bm to see the full list of goods and start planning your meals. This is a message from the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Dreaming of expanding your business? With BDC's Loan Guarantee Program, we support your ambitions. Get up to 75% guarantee on bank or credit union loans up to $300,000. Just your vision and our support. Apply today and unlock new business opportunities. BDC, Bermuda business starts here.
For over 70 years, Bermuda Pest Control has been protecting homes and businesses island-wide. We offer a full suite of services, including rodent control, termite fumigation, and general insect control and maintenance. Our team of experts will quickly and efficiently eliminate any pest problem you may have. With Bermuda Pest Control, you can enjoy a pest-free home in no time. We're committed to providing fast, reliable, and solution-driven services for our customers. It's what we've been doing since 1952. Call Bermuda Pest Control today and say goodbye to pests for good.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Novazark Feed and Supply has everything you need. From top quality foods to toys and supplies, we've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
The Office of Consumer Affairs protects residents by promoting fairness, safety, and transparency in the marketplace across the island. We investigate complaints, manage recalls, educate the public, and enforce consumer protection laws to ensure fair treatment for all. Our team supports consumers by resolving disputes, providing guidance, and helping residents understand their rights and responsibilities. We work with businesses to encourage compliance, ethical practices, and trust, helping create a stable and competitive economy. Through education, enforcement, and outreach, Consumer Affairs helps keep Bermuda's marketplace safe, informed, and accountable.
All righty, welcome back to the big show. Thanks again to Ben Smith from the One Bermuda Alliance for coming on live to engage with us directly. I definitely appreciate him making the time. And like I said, this was in the making for a while, but we do book out quite far on the Daily Hour. Not sure if you, the audience, know, but we book out probably a month and a half sometimes. So guests that you see today were probably booked over a month ago. So if you or anyone you know is interested in being a guest, you've got to get on that very, very quickly. All right. Thanks again to the BAC group of companies, HSBC Bermuda, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, Medical House, and of course, big up to Hot 107.5 for ensuring we can pump the airwaves with these most important community conversations. Folks, if you haven't already and you are streaming with us, make sure you give us a like, love, follow, share the link with your friends, family, colleagues. Help us beat the algorithms so that everyone you know has access to these most important community conversations as possible. It is time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. That sports edition, cop it now. It is fun, it is educational, and trust me, you'll learn some things that will make you say, ah. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. Are you ready? It is a name that place today. All right. This is an easy question. Here we go. What is the only continent located in all 4 hemispheres? Not that. Sorry. No one got it. No, it's not North America. It's not South America. Only a few more choices, but I'll give it to you. What is the only continent located in all 4 hemispheres? It is, ready? Africa. Yes, Dr. Anthony Richardson. Africa. It is Africa. Yes, Mark and Michelle and Karen, it's Africa. Yeah, I didn't know that before today, folks. I'm just being real with you. I did not know that before today. But it is Africa. It's the only continent located in all 4 hemispheres. Let's wrap it up. As far as the discussion this morning, I do believe that Bermudians still have a place in hospitality. I believe that hospitality can still be a viable career option, just not as it stands today. If people in the hospitality and tourism sector are serious about hiring Bermudians, then they have to create conditions that are attractive to Bermudians. That's the bottom line. And Bermudians have to have humility in entering these spaces and figuring out how they can also have a productive life working in that space full time. As far as the conversation with the opposition leader, Ben Smith, I'll say this much. I am not a politician, and I may say things that make people unhappy on a regular basis, not intentionally. But one of the reasons I couldn't be a politician is because I think I say things that are not popular. I may sometimes respond to people in ways that won't make me likable. And I think that's something that politicians have got to be wary of. While I think that Mr. Smith may be a better option than Mr. King, that's not saying much. But I appreciate that he was his authentic self today. And he has an opportunity to learn from times when he is engaging people. I know some of you in the audience were unhappy with how he responded to certain things. But none of us is perfect. None of us is going to be everything we want. But his passion for education might be the one thing that says, you know what? I appreciate the way he approaches this. But there's lessons to be learned, many lessons to be learned when it comes to politics. And I think the majority of them to be learned are on the side of the politician. I think one thing all Bermudians really want to see, they just want to see effective governance, accountable governance, transparent governance, and governance led with integrity. And if you can deliver that, all things, everything else should be good. Let's give you some daily inspiration before I let you head out for the day. Quote, this is from my book, The Journey Within. I've said this one before, but I feel like it needs to be said again. Sometimes we have to be the inspiration that we seek in others. I'll leave you with that for the day, folks. If you haven't already and you're streaming with us on social media, please make sure that you give us a like, love, follow, share the link with your friends, family, and colleagues. Help us beat the algorithms on social media so that everyone you know has access to these most important community conversations. Also, don't forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House Lindos, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio areas with these most important community conversations. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. I'm Jamal Harp, and please do make it a safe and a great day. We are out. Peace.